Welcome back to Getting Started with Zen CSS. Today, in the fourth installment, we'll be covering the Smart Color System and Smart Text Systems. And this will be a fun one. We'll be covering Zen CSS themes and modes. We'll be going hands-on with the Smart Color System. We'll talk about some advanced concepts and best practices. And finally, we'll review the Smart Text System. All right, so to explain color in Zen CSS, there's really three things we need to talk about. We need to talk about the Smart Color System, we need to talk about themes, and we need to talk about modes. But the overall arching philosophy is that it's AI-powered color compliance, right? You give us your brand colors, we're going to give you an accessible web palette that works seamlessly in light and dark mode, we're going to give you a set of themes that work with it, and everything is going to be WCAG 2.1 AA compliant for color. Which basically means it's accessible. And so I think probably the best spot to start would be with themes because it's really the crux of it. So Zen CSS comes with 7 different themes. We have a default theme, a light theme, a dark theme, and then 4 themes based on your brand colors, right? So you give us your brand colors and we're going to spit out a theme primary, a CTA, a secondary, and an accent. And if you look at them visually, we sort of designed it so the primary and the CTA kind of go together and the secondary and the accent kind of go together. You don't have to follow that convention, but that's just how it's provided for you out of the box. And then within these themes are styled. They're going to work the same way across light and dark mode. Everything's WCAG compliant, like I said. And then if you hit color here, we do have this concept of light and dark mode across the board in Zen CSS. So you'll see certain things change. These colors change, for example. The default theme colors change. The light colors theme change. The dark one stays the same because it's dark on dark. And so we have AI-generated logic or human/AI-generated logic in place that evaluates all this stuff and builds you color-compliant palettes for your themes. Okay, so that's themes, and that's light and dark mode. And again, this is all just out of the box Zen CSS functionality. But let's go into the Smart Color System and dive into that a little deeper, and then I'll show you how to actually add your brand colors and modify everything here. Now, to begin, you're going to give us 4 brand colors, right? Up to 4 brand colors. You don't have to use all of them. You could use the first and second one, for example. But let's say you give us a primary blue, a secondary green, CTA that's a lighter blue, and an accent color that's yellow. Well, we are actually going to go ahead and we're going to take your primary, and we're going to generate light, lighter, and lightest versions, dark, darker, and darkest versions, and then we're going to figure out 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio for each, and we're going to apply the appropriate text color. So when you apply either a background or a theme to your content in Zen CSS, we are going to kind of hijack the text color, so to speak, for the reason of maintaining WCAG compliance accessibility requirements. As far as the gradient goes, the gradient is actually chosen based on, we take your primary color, we look at the lighter and the darker version, and we see out of those 3, 2 of them, the primary is going to match with 1, right? Because the text is either going to pass for black or for white. And so we'll evaluate which one has color contrast that meets those criteria. If they both do, we'll pick the one with better contrast and we'll generate a gradient out of that for you. And so that's how that logic works on the back end. But regardless, you need to know, and we'll do a walkthrough of this in just a minute, but you need to know you put in your primary colors, you get back a whole brand palette. Same thing with universal colors. We have these default universal colors. You can change them out. Let's say you had a pastel theme. You can go ahead and change those to your colors, and we'll auto-generate that palette for you, and again, maintain WCAG compliance in terms of the text color on top of that. And then we also provide a shades of gray template. So same thing, 6 shades of gray. We break out light and dark versions of each. We also do have 2 kind of special unique classes here called background opaque and background blur. So I would look into those as well because those are kind of fun. And then we generate also font colors. Now, if you change the brand colors, you're going to have to do a one-time kind of just reshuffle which ones are on light, which ones are on dark. But that's the Smart Color System in a nutshell. And so again, very simple to use. You can just set text to red, or for the background, you can set background to primary, or like we've seen in earlier videos, you could do theme CTA, for example. And so with all of that in mind, let's hop into the source code and we'll show you how to update these colors. All right, so we're back here in our code editor. We've got the Zen CSS project loaded up, and we're going to be working with the Sass files today. So we'll go to the SCSS folder. These settings are all stored in user settings. However, I normally wouldn't recommend modifying them directly here. What I would recommend is going into core, going into your config, and you'll see there's a line to import an override file, right? Because we import the override file, or we import the user settings into the program here, rather, and then do a bunch of computation on them. And so if you include an overrides file here, you'll be able to import your brand colors in, but then when we do an update, you can just have to put this path back and it won't overwrite anything. For today's example, I'm just going to go ahead and modify the user settings Sass file directly because we're not going to be using this implementation. And so coming over here, let's take this blue for example, and let's say we wanted to change this blue to a red, right? We could go ahead and just do that, save it, and then we're going to go ahead and recompile our CSS files. So we'll hit npm run build CSS. That will generate all our new source maps and our minified files and our CSS and everything. And then if we go to examples, if we go to docs and examples and then go to the smart color system and look at that, we can see now that the brand palette has been updated with that new brand color. The primary color is created light and dark and gradient variations based on that. So literally that quick, just by updating these 4 values, you can generate an entire color palette. It'll also update the themes. But that's how you import your brand colors, your universal palette, and your shades of gray palette. It's a one-time setting, and then your brand will be set up to work with Zen CSS. Now let's talk about one more thing. Let's talk about some best practices and tips. When you're stylizing things in Zen CSS, the hierarchy that you should be thinking about is first themes, then backgrounds, then text. Meaning, I can come in at any level, right? We have themes declared here. I can come in at any level and I can inspect this theme, and let's say theme primary, but I want to do background gray. I'll do background gray one. I can override any theme at the background level. And then I can also override any text at the text level. So I could say text, let's say red. Now that doesn't look very good, but the idea is that the theme comes first, and then any background class assigned to that element will override the theme, and then both of those are going to style the text, right? First, the theme's going to try and style the text, and then if you use a background override, that's going to also style the text, both maintaining 4.5 to 1 WCAG compliance. In terms of color, and then if you put a text color on it, that is going to give you carte blanche to put whatever color you want. I can't guarantee WCAG compliance because I don't know what background you're putting it on, so that will be up to you. But it's meant to be basically at the theme level and the background level. You should be able to do 90% of what you want to do and still maintain that compliance out of the box. And so let's talk about the smart text system. I know we covered this a bit in the first video, but I sort of want to explain how it works in greater detail, right? And so we have a paragraph tag here. And if we change this paragraph tag, and if we change the size of this paragraph tag, it is going to automatically adjust the H1 through H6 dynamically based on that size. The system is also going to automatically regenerate all of these text sizes, font sizes, based on different viewport resolutions. And so if you're on mobile, the paragraph's going to be 14, for example, whereas if you're on a desktop, it's going to be 16. And so just to give you an idea, right, let's inspect it, and we'll go to computed, and we'll go to font size, and we have 14 here, and we can, okay, that's set on responsive, and you'll see as we adjust the size of the screen, it automatically adjusts. It also adjusts font spacing, font sizing, and so out of the box, it's going to give you, like I said, that dynamic across the board feel of maximizing that space and that screen real estate that you have. Now, let's talk about how to implement this. It's pretty simple. You go into your Zen CSS, and you can set your font sizes here, right at the top. Okay, so you set your tablet font size, you set your Zen font size, and your large screen font size, and everything's going to work automatically. Should you want to do any overrides, you can go ahead into the core and go to the media query Sass file, and you can adjust the media queries from there. In this way, we give you a lightning fast way to build out your designs, make sure they're accessible, make sure they're compliant, make sure they look great and they're on brand, It gives folks that maybe want to take it a step further the ability to very quickly, from the HTML without writing CSS, restylize individual pieces of content, knowing the text is going to look beautiful on all devices. And I think combining these ideas with the Smart Align system really provides an out-of-the-box solution that automates color, shape, and form. And so I hope this video has been useful for you. In future videos, we'll get into covering some of the site sections, some of the demos, some of the components and utilities that are available within Zen CSS.